Awesome. Hey, let's get started. So I think I'm going to move back. I'm going to only have just Tim and Katie do their book reviews today. The other two okay with that? I can't remember who the other two, Max and Jared, right? So you guys have been granted grace once again. You are like the people that get struck twice by lightning in life, And there are a group of people who some people get struck twice for some reason. That's what happened to you guys in a good way. So, all right. Well,
I legit know somebody that has been struck by lightning.
there you go. I'm kind of waiting for my opportunity. So,
My dad got hit.
Superpowers, right?
A really odd burn.
I'm sure. Yeah, no, I know someone that got struck by lightning. They had health problems the rest of their life. So, hey, all right. So here's today's agenda. I'm going to have Tim present his book review. Then I'm going to have Katie present hers. Then Mr. Gogarty is going to join our call. And I'm going to give each team about 10, 12 minutes to be able to present what they have. And who's going to be the spokesperson for each team? Okay, Jared, who's gonna be, and Max. Okay, all right. So, Jared and Max, pick a number between 1 and 10. Whoever's the closest gets to pick if they go first or second.
7.
Okay.
9.
The number is 2. So, Max, you get to choose. Do you want to go first or last?
I'll go first.
Okay. All right. So when we get Mr. Gogarty on the call, Max, I'll get your I think I have the screen sharing all set up here where everyone should be able to share. So all participants can share. Okay, there we go. All right. Tim, you ready? Go for it. I got you muted there. Okay. Give us your book review.
All right, yeah. So I didn't have a PowerPoint for today, so you guys are just gonna have to use visuals in your head or whatever.
The theater of the mind.
Exactly, the old imagination. So basically, I had "There's No Such Thing as Business Ethics" by John C. Maxwell. He's actually a really good writer. He has some New York's best-selling books, I believe, and he's also a Christian, which is really cool. So basically, the book starts off talking about different businesses that have basically completely plummeted just because of the fact that they had people who completely disregarded any sort of ethics and kind of, try to steal money from the company or whatnot, and they completely crashed. Because it's like a big thing in business is like, how do you decide what's ethical and what's not ethical? Because everybody wants to win, everybody wants to be successful, but what does that look like? So it talks about some of the different things that different businesses try to use as their standard for ethics. Some businesses will try to use just whatever's lawful in the state or county or whatnot. But what he's proposing is that there's no such thing as business ethics. There's just ethics, like on a personal level. And what he uses for that and he says will basically like be the best for that is the golden rule, pretty much. So let's see. I had some notes here. Oh yeah, here they are. But anyways, so, and here's just 5 key points. I mean, he's saying here's 5 things that can definitely undermine the golden rule. And the golden rule is also something that goes across all cultures and all religions. And actually, I didn't know this, but like almost every religion actually has their own version of the golden rule, like do unto others as you would have them do unto you. And actually, every religion has a very similar thing, kind of what you would find in like Matthew 7:12. They actually have all very similar things to that. So it's really interesting.
Yeah.
Anyway,
even let me interrupt you real quick. Even the Humanist Manifesto, I believe, has a kind of a version of the golden rule in there. And so, yeah, it's quite universal. Good. All right, keep going.
Yeah, no, it's really interesting, and it's something that kind of transcends all kind of cultures and religions. I mean, it's the idea of like, of course, like we would want, to have other people do to us as, like we want people to treat us how we want to be treated. Um, let's see, forgot where I was going with this. Oh yeah, I was going to tell you guys about he gives 5 factors that can kind of undermine that golden rule, and those are pressure, pleasure, power, pride, and priorities. So I mean, I kind of have my notes all scattered, but yeah. So I mean, in short, basically, he just says how having the golden rule, like in your personal life, can actually lead you to be more successful than just going for the gold or just striving to be, because like often in today's culture what we see as successful is just being better than the next person or kind of winning no matter what the cost. But he's saying in the long run that's actually not going to work out. What's actually going to work out for you is actually doing what's right in the end, even when other people aren't going to repay that back to you. So that's pretty much it.
Excellent. All right, let's give him a round of applause there, everybody. Okay, good job. Yeah, I like where you were going with that in Maxwell's point about basically, because I was curious about the title. I haven't read that book. So when he said there's no such thing as business ethics, it makes sense. A lot of people look at business and the decisions they make at work as if they're compartmentalized apart from the rest of their life. And as Christians, you'll see people that they're truly believers, but they've convinced themselves that they can compartmentalize their different ethics. So their ethics at work, are different than what they would want to have happen in their home. Remember when, in our other class, those of you that in the other class, we watched a whole video about a guy, Jack Abramoff, and his whole, how he justified things and he compartmentalized his life in these different ethical compartments. You see it a lot too outside of business. You see it in sports too, right? So you'll have someone that is a children's ministry leader and the nicest person in the world until you get them on the church softball team. I don't know if any of you ever played church softball. Oh boy. Or church basketball league, like men's league or something like that. Or maybe you've played sports with someone and it's like they're a different person. And not just that they're aggressive or competitive, but they literally like lose their temper and have a terrible attitude and throw a fit. And I was a soccer ref. I reffed men's league, U17 elite for a number of years. And you would see people who normally were just great, but then when they got on the soccer pitch, for some reason, they just lost all of it's as if they're a whole different person. And I think what John Maxwell's saying is you can't compartmentalize your ethics just to like, okay, well, I'll have one set of standards that applies to the way I look at business and then another set. So Jared Ball, if you got something to say.
Yes, it's unfortunately not super specific to this topic. Besides, wondering which form are we filling out? Is this report feedback number 11?
Yeah, it's whatever one goes with this date. So this
Okay.
just put the 2 for today on this date, and then I'll have to. I need to move. I think I moved one. Maybe we have 2 for this date. I'll go back and look at it, but fill out one for just the one that corresponds to this date. I'll make sure there's another one in there before next Tuesday. So, all right, excellent. Thank you very much, Tim. All right, Katie.
All right. I'm gonna try to do screen share real quick. I don't know how this works. So let's see. Okay. Can you guys all see that PowerPoint? Okay. Well, I'm just gonna guess you can because I can't see any of you guys. Anyway, the book I had was How to Lead When You're Not in Charge by Scroggins. He is an assistant pastor who's kind of just like walking the reader through his life of he wanted to always be an authority, but he didn't realize that leadership and authority are two different things. And
Hey,
that kind of
we
Sorry?
can't see the PowerPoint.
I wonder
Nobody
if
can
it's
see the
on. Do you
PowerPoint.
have is it on your second screen possibly, or?
No. Can you, let me see. Okay. Can you guys see it now?
Yes, I see
Okay.
something.
Yep.
Cool. Let me
There
go
we
back
go.
one.
Thank
Okay. Let's start over. All right. So yeah, this is the title of the book by Scroggins. And I'm just going to kind of walk you through the chapters. There's 3 different sections, 10 chapters. And yeah, let's just get going. So the first section was understanding our challenge as leaders. And first chapter is called The Oddity of Leadership, which just talks about the leadership versus authority concept. Like I said before, authority is like a position you've been given, while leadership is like a characteristic that you can build up over time. So if you're not in like an authority position, this chapter is just saying you need to avoid the trap of thinking you're just passive victims who can do nothing. Just take the responsibility you've been given to make yourself greater and work up the ladder of success. The next chapter was talking about an identity crisis. Your identity is kind of what's foundational. It determines your confidence level, establishes your sense of security, and it enables you to process your emotions. Before you spend any energy on what you do as leaders, you need to spend time on who you are as leaders, especially when you're not the ones that are in charge. And just a side note, this chapter was really awkward to read because there was a section called using a fake ID and having multiple passports. And that was the page I had opened when some of the RAs were standing behind us talking. And they were just like, okay, what is she reading? So that was fun. Anyway, the third chapter was called Reclaiming Kibosh. And kibosh is just basically a fancy word he used for ambition. It's like, I think it was another language that the word came from, but
I think it comes from Yiddish. I think it's
okay.
like a, you know, in New York, Jewish people that are Jewish descent, they speak like they have all these little words. I think kibosh is a Yiddish word, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay, that sounds right. So we're just going to go with that. But there were 2 different extremes to this theory. There was let the ambition you have run wild, or just kill ambition. And neither one of those is good, because killing ambition is basically like throwing away any God-given talent for leadership that you have. And letting it run wild also isn't good, because God intends structure and answering to others in our lives. So he was basically just advising leaders just to find the middle ground of ambition, which can lead to like motivation in your line of work. And then that moves on to the next section, which is the 4 behaviors of leaders that they need to establish in themselves. And the first behavior was leading yourself. So before you become like an actual leader who can lead others, you need to model followership yourself, monitor your heart and behavior, and make an intentional plan and stick to it. So for modeling followership, you need to react your life to how others will view you. Do they want to follow your actions or like get away from them as far as possible? And then when you monitor your heart behavior, you need to have a healthy curiosity for growth that should drive your efforts and monitor your behavior. And then third, you need to make an intentional plan, like by knowing where you are and having a vision to where you want to be, and then stick to that plan. The next chapter was called Choosing Positivity. Positivity is not a personality trait, but it's a character trait. Personality is something you just like have as a person, whereas positivity is like a character development that is built over time, especially when things are difficult. It's your responsibility as a leader to look for ways you can connect what you do every day to how you can achieve the overall goals and objectives of what you're working on. Next chapter was called Think Critically. He gave in this chapter 4 different shifts to improve critical thinking skills. First, you need to stop thinking as an employee and start thinking as an owner. Usually as workers, we're not really concerned about the company or anything. It's just like, it's not our problem. We just do what we want to do and get out of there, or do what we're hired to do and get out of there. He said, think like it's your reputation on the line that'll build more of a reputation for yourself in the eyes of your manager and others around you. And then second, stop stacking your meetings and start scheduling thinking meetings. Basically just take time for yourself, give yourself mental space. As life gets busier and you get more authority position, you need to take time for yourself to kind of recenter. The third step was stop being critical and start thinking critically. Critical people want you to lose, while critical thinkers want you to win, and they help motivate you to do something better. And then the fourth step was stop giving others a grade and start lending them a hand. Have a desire to help more than give a grade. Think positively, but be a critical thinker as well, was kind of the summary of that chapter. And then the last chapter in this section was reject passivity. Don't let the passivity of subordination settle in you like a plague. Let the motivation to work harder be kind of what pushes you to move up the chain of success. A lot of us like ask our boss, what can we do to help? But good leaders will look for things to do themselves, because when you ask, what can I do to help? That's putting a burden on your boss to do his job and then to think of other ways to do your job. A good leader will not be putting more work on somebody, but helping take off that work for somebody else. And the final section of the book for the last 3 chapters is called Challenging Authority. And chapter 8 in this book talked about challenging up. This is kind of just like seeing something and then approaching the person in authority to change something that's going on in the business. So good leaders will challenge with the best motives. They'll be aware of what the boss is most interested in, so they won't like suggest stuff that's unnecessary to change just to change it. They'll know what's core, like that has to stay the way it is, and they'll know what like can be changed. And then you need to make sure that you're challenging up quietly, but you're not silent. So you don't want to be disrespectful, but you also don't want to like just sit in the shadows and not have anyone know you're there when you're challenging. Chapter 9 was dealing with kind of the same concept, but in a scenario where you don't necessarily respect your boss or like what they're doing, but you still need to like challenge their authority. So loving your boss means genuinely knowing what's best for them, and you're trying to do what's in their best interest, even if you don't respect them a lot. And even if you don't like your boss, still God has put them in that position. And you just need to, if you want to get on the better side of your boss, you need to practice faithfulness, because that builds up trust. And then you can like challenge them or bring something up to them instead of just jumping in there and trying to change the way things are. People will respect you more as a leader if you're not bad-mouthing your boss and then trying to change stuff. A good leader won't ever bad-mouth anyone. They'll just kind of do its best and be a positive person in the work environment. And then the last chapter was just kind of like final words before sending you off into the world kind of a thing. It's called Your Next Chapter Starts Today. And he put a quote in there that I really found compelling at the end of the chapter. He was just like, it's easy to daydream about looking down on people, but it's more challenging when you think seriously about other people looking up to you. You need to consider your reputation. And that's just something I really pulled from this book, was that when we think of wanting to be leaders, we really want to have that position of authority and be able to tell other people what to do. But we don't really think of the other side of having people look up to us and being that role model for other people. I think that's more serious to consider than the fact that we get to be in the authority position and have others look down on us. So yeah, that is the title of the book, if nobody got it at the beginning, and that is the end.
Excellent. Excellent. Let's give her a round of applause. Good job. You know, what's interesting is all the books that have been presented have been a personal challenge to me. So I appreciate you guys digging into the books and coming up with some really good, not just the summary of the book, but also some of your own personal thoughts, because every one of these books, I mean, the 2 books presented today, both are hitting me in different ways. You know, I'm constantly talking about business ethics. I mean, we have a whole class called business ethics, and then Tim just presented a book. There are no such thing as business ethics. So, but our textbook is called business ethics in that class. So really good challenge. And then this one, you know, I was in an executive leadership role for the last number of years, and now I'm a professor with no one working under me. And so I can get my mind kind of focused on the wrong things, like, oh man, I can't make any changes, whatever. But really, this is a great challenge that God placed me in this position for a specific reason. And so I need to kind of embrace my role and understand why I am where I am. So great job, both. Thank you very much. We'll do the final 2 book reviews next Tuesday. Quick reminder on a couple of things, and Max, you might want to start getting ready because Mr. Gogreedy is going to drop in here in 5 minutes. Number one, when you're done with your book review, it doesn't have to be because some of you haven't done this yet. There's no penalty for not having done this yet, but you do need to, there's an assignment, the book review assignment in Canvas. You need to submit your book review in there, which I believe is like a 7 or 8 paragraph. It needs to be written as if you were turning it into an English professor, right? So I'm not necessarily grading the MLA format and stuff because we're doing it through Canvas, but it does need to be written at a college level worthy of an A. So read the instructions on that assignment and then submit that. I think all of you have, done a great job breaking down your books. And so if you haven't done that step, just go back and put together a written summary. That'd be very important because it's worth a lot of points. And you do need to get that done. Probably the sooner the better if you haven't done it yet because it's still fresh in your mind. Also, if you did do a PowerPoint, you weren't required to do a PowerPoint, but if you did one, make sure you email that to me. I think I've got many of them, but it really helps me a lot. I'll never take your work and turn it into my work. That's not why I'm asking for it. It just kind of helps me because I might lift a couple quotes out for my own life, or I might throw some on my whiteboard or whatever. But just so you know, it's not ethical for me to take something you did and then turn it into mine. So I can't take Katie's PowerPoint and say, hey, I'm going to do a book review on this. And then all of a sudden you see 3 years later, I'm rich and famous off of Katie's PowerPoint. So that's not going to happen for a lot of reasons. But one of them is that would not be ethical. But that's an ethical challenge some college professors have gotten in trouble for because they take the work of students or undergrads. And so anyway, and then I would encourage you as we're getting down towards the home stretch here to look at all the assignments in Canvas and make sure you have turned in everything, right? So I keep all the assignments open all the way until May 5th. After that, I can't keep them open any longer, particularly because the way I've structured this class, we're not doing a big final exam or anything like that. So, I'm trying to make it where it's very doable for you to just get everything in. Now, you might have to make some calculations. Like there might be a couple assignments where you're like, well, the point value is very low and I have other stuff to get done. That's fine. And you never have to apologize to me for making a judgment call on whether you're going to get something done or not. I've been there. I am there. So sometimes you have to decide what's the best thing to do, and you can't do everything to perfection. But I would encourage you to try and get everything done that you can get done and look at the point values on the different assignments. If you have to decide between doing one thing or doing another, do the thing with the most points because you don't want to affect your grade in a negative way just because you didn't turn something in. All right. Okay. Well, without further ado, Jared Ball, you have a question.
Yes, sir. I was wondering if there is a file on Canvas giving us a guideline for what we're supposed to turn in for the book report.
If you look at the so in the assignment list at the very bottom, one of the bottom ones says book report. You click on that, and in the description, I give the 4 or 5 things that it needs to include. If you can't find it, just message me later and I'll send you a link to it. But it's in the assignment itself, and I think a few other people have found it. So, okay. All right. So Max chose the correct number, and his team gets to go first. Max, you got about 10, 11 minutes or so because Mr. Gogreedy needs to hear yours and he needs to be able to hear the other teams before he has to run to another meeting to do a video. So I'm going to hand it over to Max. You should be able to share.
All right. Should be this one. Can you guys see all that? All right. So we're just going to present the data that we got. There we go. Let me see if I can. You don't need to see that. So the members that we had on our team, Katie was a compiler, Tim worked on the slogan, David worked on the hashtag, and Alyssa on the promotion. And then together we all worked on suggesting ideas for the projects that the school could complete. So we got our ideas from a number of places. I had everybody look up other schools as to what they were doing for things like the slogans, hashtags, and promotional ideas. And then we also use those ideas and combine that with our own ideas and created a survey. We sent out, we sent that out to people, friends, family, and we got a number of results. I think we got over 60 responses back from that. And so the data that we compiled is a combination of things that we researched from other schools, and then also the data we got back from actual people that we asked. So these are the hashtags that were suggested and then later voted on. This is an order of popularity that we got from the survey. Faith 100 ended up being the #1 answer, and a lot of schools that we had researched, they had the name of the school plus 100 after that. And I think while that is maybe a little generic, it's short and it's easy to remember. Again, some of the other ones that were suggested were Century of Faith, Century of Discipleship, Faith Pride, Century of Sending. And through the survey, like I said, I believe it was over 60 responses. Faith 100 ended up pulling out ahead, but not by much. Century of Faith was actually quite close. Now, moving on to the slogans, again, Century of Faith was on there because we felt that could work well either as a hashtag or a slogan. But then other slogans that were suggested were a Century of Discipleship, taking the word to the world for 100 years, so celebrating 100 years of being and making disciples, a Century of Sending, 100 years to the world, celebrating 100 years of success. Like I said, some of these were taken from other schools and adapted to what would fit our needs best, and then other of these were suggested by people within the group, and then all that was put on the survey. So here are the results from the survey. Century of Faith did win this one by a greater margin than the hashtag, and so Century of Faith, I think that encompasses it encompasses what we're doing as a school, because I feel like it has both a double meaning of celebrating 100 years of school, but also celebrating 100 years of the faithfulness of school and serving God through that. So I think that's a good descriptor of what we are as a school, while also kind of having a double meaning in there. Now up to the promotions. Again, this was a combination of suggestions and also looking at other schools. Things that suggested were merchandise with anniversary hashtags or slogans, and the logos that has been produced, putting that on like mugs, stickers, water bottles, clothes, etc. Another one that was highly voted on was homecoming activities commemorating the school's anniversary. And these are things that are just happening throughout the year, kind of in line with like the president going around the country, but doing other smaller events throughout the year, and around the country leading up to the actual homecoming day. Another thing to kind of promote it out on the internet would be a photo contest with current students and alumni with a prize from the anniversary merchandise. So that would be like something on Instagram or Facebook where people are sharing things and memories that they have had or are having on campus. That's doing the promoting that doesn't require a lot of budget and marketing on the school side, but it's allowing the people to share things that they've memories that they have had over the years. Other schools had done things such as a drama production about the school's beginning. I forget which school that was suggested from, but that would also be a good way of remembering the history of faith. And then other things that were suggested were alumni reunions around the country and posters promoting the anniversary. And finally, we have the projects that were suggested. And some of these are smaller and some of these were a little bit more substantial. Some of the smaller ones were putting water fountains in the dorms. I know that had been suggested a couple times as like a class gift, but I think that would also be a good investment into the dorms. Another smaller one would be establishing extracurricular clubs and programs for current students. So I mean, that could take on a whole range of different things. One of the more medium-sized ones would be putting trees and wind block on the way to Benson, so kind of lining that whole sidewalk with trees that'll break the wind in the Iowa winter. Another one that was a little more substantial would be redoing the pavement, especially in the circle where that's all cracked and broken up, and making that look nice. And then one of the bigger ones were redoing the student center, making that a little more modern. And then finally, redoing the library, adding maybe a 3 Seasons room, or doing a study lounge section, more study rooms, quiet study area, test taking, and then maybe updating some of the equipment in there. And so that concludes the presentation. Does anyone have any specific questions?
Yeah, that was really well done. Thank you. I did have a few questions. Did you have anything specific with the homecoming celebration itself as far as ideas?
Alyssa, do you have anything to say on that specifically?
Yeah, let me see. I had some written down. So for that, I know that Max, you had said that President Tillotson would be kind of going around to different schools or churches during that time. But some of the things I was thinking about was a chorale tour or concert that was specifically created with some songs or just testimonies that were kind of meaningful and that kind of shared faith's story throughout the years, I guess. So a tour going around the country and then just finishing off with a concert coming back. And then obviously the photo contest was one of the ideas that we had. And then another one was having maybe a video series that talks about faith's history and then has testimonials from alumni or current students throughout it, just leading up to the year.
Yeah, that's really good. We are planning to do a video, so that is hopefully going to be in the works. So that is definitely something that we would show at that time. With the chorale, were you thinking that they would travel? So we're planning to do what we call it like a tailgate tour, which would include members of our administration, probably some of our alumni department, probably Mark Davis with admissions. Were you thinking that the chorale would travel with that group to those various locations in conjunction with them?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. I like that a lot. You mentioned water fountains in the dorms. Are you referring to the fountains that you drink from, or for like a decorative fountain?
Sorry, those would be like ones that you drink from.
Okay, gotcha. I like both ideas, actually. I could see maybe some decorative fountains in the dorm. We've talked about a centennial fountain outdoors, but there's some huge barriers there with logistics.
Yeah, imagine a fountain you can actually drink from, not just one that pours water down the drain. That's so brilliant yet so accessible. Wow.
Yeah. No, I love it. I loved your hashtags. Some of those are some of the ones I've thought about generally in the same area. I thought it was great. Fantastic. Loved it.
Great. Awesome. Okay. Thank you, guys. Now let's switch over to the other team here. You should be able to share your screen and
Yes,
walk through your presentation.
Okay. So our presentation goes by the name Operation Century. And we took a 3-pronged approach to this project. First, we wanted to create a hashtag that identifies the event, connects the media around the event, and also unifies social media users and posts. So we made sure to understand the purpose of a hashtag and make sure that the 3 choices that we narrowed ours down to all applied to that purpose. We also wanted to create a slogan that identifies the event, markets the event, and unifies those connected to the event. We want to create a sense of unity and bonding, even with just a slogan. But when we were looking for our slogan, we wanted to specifically honor the past and look forward to the future. And for our third approach, we wanted to identify a project to solidify the milestone and benefit the ministry of Faith Baptist Bible College. So when we were choosing ideas for the project that we want to do, we wanted to make sure that not only does this benefit the school and its ministries, we also want it to remind people of this event whenever they see it on campus. We also, as the handle to our trident there, to really seal the deal, with all of these, you have to inform the people. This needs to be a campaign centered around information and getting the word out. So you'll see that later on in the presentation. First of all, our hashtag, we have 3 options: 100 years faith strong, hashtag faith 100, and one vision, 100 years of history. So our reasoning behind these, the heart of faith is to see God's word spread to the world. So when we were coming up with the hashtag, we made sure to look at the mission statement of faith. And one of the most essential parts of the mission statement, besides training up servant leaders, is spreading the word of God. Hashtags need to be short and concise. They're easy to remember and they're easy to use. And I know Faith 100 was on the other team's presentation. That's very popular with schools and organizations, especially when they're celebrating a year anniversary, to have the name of the organization and then the year afterwards. Social media managers claim unique hashtags are important. So that references to the first and the third options. When you make something a little more unique, you kind of narrow the search. When somebody uses a hashtag online, they click on that hashtag, it brings up the results that are tied in with that. So a hashtag like Faith 100 is good, it's simple, it's short, but also it can apply to a large range of celebrations, organizations, posts, etc. So that's why we have multiple options of different types. For the slogan, we had remembering the past, training the future, celebrating the past, training the future, training a century of servant leaders, and a century of sending the word to the world. So you can see with these 4 options as well, we made sure to tie in with remembering the past, but also looking forward to the future. I think that ties together basically what we want to convey by celebrating 100 years of being in existence. So the reasoning behind these, Faith's mission statement focuses on training servant leaders, and each one of these 4 hits that. That's one of the main purposes of the school. That's also very evident to the students who are on campus and who have also graduated. The school requests the incorporation of the past and the future. So points 1 and 2 specifically reference both the past and the future, just a difference of word there. But we want to make sure that with this slogan, we encapsulate the meaning of the celebration here. Our third reason was the formats of all 4 of the above slogans align with other successful slogans that we've seen in a couple examples. The China Bank, the National Park Service, Kansas State University were 3 specifics where the same formation of word structure and keywords was very similar. So the success of those slogans is pretty well transferable to what we're doing here. So the project, we have a couple options here. Update gray, renovate the bathrooms in Jordan, landscaping, and fix concrete around campus. So these 3 options are a combination of several reasons that we have. Number 1, a sampling of those who work at and spend time around Faith agree with the above proposals. So that was a word of mouth survey where both points 1 through 1, 2, and 3 were common suggestions. So Gray has been around for a good period of time on campus, and we are starting to improve other areas of campus. And as we do that, one of the points is the older resources need like updates. And Gray is our most populated classroom building. So when we have several dedicated classrooms within Gray and also a computer lab up top, it's a pretty central hub for the teaching portion of what we do at the school. So if we improve that, that will be a good overall improvement. Renovate the bathrooms in Jordan. That's just plain utility and also time for an update. That would also benefit people who are coming in to visit the campus. We'll have a better restroom area for them and also for faculty and administration. Landscaping. We also had the point of fixing concrete around campus, specifically the circle where the concrete's cracked and broken up a bit. There are also some other areas where maybe the sides are crumbling, some sidewalks, and fixing those would be a nice facelift to the campus. Some upkeep and renovations are just needed with time. Options 2 and 3 speak to that. So, and for our last point, to inform, our ideas are radio and TV advertisements and commercials, Christian stations to reach a target audience. And so we identified our audience with this, being locals, alumni, and affiliated churches and ministries, potential students and their families. And so with each one of these 3 points, we made sure to keep our focus group in mind. We can also create banners and rent billboards, banners on light poles or on streets near the campus. We have a selection of streets that would be particularly a good spread for us to hit a large target. Also, we can send information to churches, missionaries, and Christian organizations, formal letters, brochures, emails, etc., weekly updates to keep interest. So we have a couple selections there, web videos, status reports, along with the web videos can be videos that have been presented or organized for homecoming, and so they can be specific, classy, big presentations. Specific audience will be responding to this event, so our marketing ideas cater to that audience, and each one of these 3 ideas does that. So with that, that's the end of our presentation. If there are any questions, I'd be more than happy.
Yeah, very well done again. I had a couple questions. On your hashtag, and both groups had the Faith 100, did either group do any research to see if that's been used before or how unique to us that would be? I know obviously faith is very generic. Did anybody check to see if that's been used or how frequently it's been used?
I think a lot of the time when I was looking for hashtags and everything, it was the name of the company or of the school, and then it would be combined with how many years they're celebrating. So I'm not sure how unique per se it would be, but it is more of like a concise type of a hashtag just to make it short and sweet type thing, more than a unique area of it.
I did look that up on Instagram and Facebook. There's more than 500 posts on Instagram and also a lot, I couldn't get a number, but there are multiple posts on Facebook as well.
Okay. You talk about projects, and this is potentially something we'll talk about again in the future with some or all of you. My question would be, as students, what would you like to see? Like what, as a student at Faith, most of you will probably be here for the next few years. You know, what, if we were to do a project on campus, what would you like to see as students out of that list that you came up with?
Out of that list, of course, there's going to be people with different opinions. I know that there were a couple who had mentioned to me that they wanted to see some more dedicated student facilities, but also the 3 points that we brought up in the presentation. are wanted by the students as well. I know that the Jordan bathroom is not really one that I heard anything about from students particularly. That was more ideas that came from looking after different types of people using the campus. So I know updating Gray though is a big thing for students and faculty, staff, and visitors alike. That one really also speaks to incoming students, because if they see the facility where they're going to be taking a good bulk of their classes is updated and is kind of up on the times, which we've done a good facelift with the those screens, which are the smart boards. That's a good addition. If we keep up the updating along that line, I think that would be welcomed by students and faculty and staff alike.
Yeah, I agree. I would love to see if you honed in like on the Gray updates, like what specifically you would like to see updated there, like what you would like to see done to get it updated. So I would love to see maybe some specifics on that. And then also on your radio and television ads from a national perspective, you know, what markets would you think it would be good to advertise in? And maybe what stations, what mediums you think would be good from a nationwide perspective for advertising?
I'll let Noah speak on this as well, but I know that we had a couple stations particularly that reached an audience in Iowa that we could pinpoint. We also got the radius of their influence, but there are several organizations that, like the Carolina Christian Radio, I know in my area is connected with many radio stations that produce mostly Christian material, and so we can narrow down our audience with their statistics. I know also Professor Baldwin is very well connected with the radio and could give good input here. But if we target connecting with organizations that are a collection of Christian radio stations, then we can hit very well documented areas of people that are specific targets. So if we get their influence and understand who their audience is, we can understand where we're hitting and control that.
Perfect. I love it. Very nice work.
Excellent. Andrew, thanks for joining us. I know you got to run, but I'll meet with you later and I'll get you a copy of all these presentations and everything. So
sounds good. Thank you so much. Good to see you guys.
Thank you. See you later. Okay, students. So it looks like I'm gonna go back to, since we just did Operation Century here. How about Caleb, your team, put your heads together today, tomorrow, and shoot me maybe an update to this that has specifically a couple things that you think could happen in Gray. So since he specifically asked about that, like, narrow it down. What do you think Gray needs the most? And maybe give like 5 things we could do in Gray. So your team needs to kind of update the outline version of the presentation. Don't worry about updating the PowerPoint unless you just want to. But the outline, add in 5 ideas for Gray. For Max's team, what I'd like you to do is come up with some more specific things for specifically what could happen during homecoming weekend. So I think that's where Mr. Gogarty was kind of going with his initial question, but maybe what would it look like? What would homecoming weekend or homecoming week look like that would be different than a normal homecoming week? Give me a couple of ideas. Why don't you give me 5 things that could happen during a homecoming week or homecoming celebration that would be unique to this 100, and update your outline with that as well and shoot it back to me. I'd like to have both of those by the end of business tomorrow so I can meet with Mr. Gogarty on maybe Monday morning and then go from there. And then I'll ask him, what does he want to do next? Does he want to merge these two? Does he want to highlight what he believes would be the most powerful from both presentations and combine it into one? So we'll follow his lead on that, but I do need those updates. And then I think you all did a great job. Good collaboration all the way around. Thank you all for carrying your own weight and also contributing to each other's piece of the puzzle here. So excellent job. And I just want to say, diversity is a wonderful thing. So the different ways of presenting it, the different types of PowerPoints, the different angles of coming at it, the philosophy of how you decided what direction to go versus a poll versus, the three-pronged approach plus the handle, all that. It's just great. And that's why you never want to fall into, first off, it's lazy research to only come up with your own idea and that's it. That's just being lazy, right? Or it could be a little bit arrogant where you think that you sitting in your ivory tower has all the best idea. You have all the best ideas. None of us is as smart as all of us, they say. So by getting everyone contributing, you are always going to have a more well-rounded presentation and better ideas. Even if you're a marketing guru, you can ask your 4th grade niece, hey, what do you think about this? And they will sometimes give you an idea that you couldn't think of because your brain is wired one way and their brain's wired a different way. So great job all the way around. Excellent work. Give me those updates by the end of business tomorrow. I'll stay in touch with you probably Monday after I meet with Mr. Gogarty. I'll shoot a note to the 2 team leaders, and then we'll know what we're doing on Tuesday. We do have the final 2 book reports Tuesdays or book reviews on Tuesday. Okay? All right. Any questions? Okay. If you ever miss a class, I'm trying to upload the classes, particularly that people miss, to the YouTube channel. If you missed the class, watch the video on YouTube, leave a comment on YouTube so I know you watched it, and I'll give you credit for being present at that class for the rest of this semester, because it's kind of a weird time for all of us. Okay? All right. See you guys later. Bye.
Don't forget to like and subscribe, smash that notification bell.
That's right. And enter to win some great swell prizes.